Sam, I'm very happy to meet you. I met you here in Seoul for the first time, thanks to my friend Benjamin Butler. I already did an interview with Benjamin, and we already had a chance to talk. So I know a little bit about you, but not our audience. Can you tell me about your story? Because you are Korean, but you're not a typical Korean. You have an amazing story. Can you tell me a little bit about who is Sam?
Okay, I'm Sam Yu. I grew up in Korea and went to United States at the age of 17. Stayed there 17 years. And I educated in the high school in San Jose and San Jose State, and then Hewlett Packard first company that put me through school and a graduate school at Stanford. And I spent 7 out of 10 years establishing the joint venture between Samsung and HP. Grew the business about 8 times, and then came back to US for 3 years, and then went back to Korea.
Still for HP?
So, right, no, with the Microsoft.
Oh.
And I spent 4 years growing the business. I don't know how many times, but and then from '97, I'm a educator or professor at managing technology-based company, and then boutique, the investor and a consultant with technology-based companies.
Wow, so after our discussion I can say that I have the feeling that you are some kind of technological guru, I could say.
I know enough to get myself and other people in trouble, get them engaged in. And I'm not a technologist per se, but I'm a student of the technology adoption lifecycle, which is popularized by the Jeffrey A. Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm.
I'll put the link to the book.
And when I introduced the concept, and that I subscribed to it very much, because I had to learn how to manage and market the technology-based products. At the time when I had a joint venture with the Samsung and HP, I had to scale up and duplicate many people in order to grow the people and meet the demands of the companies and the customers. So I subscribe to that, and then when I look at that, the module fits very closely fit, but I cannot duplicate it, or because I was the only one that being able to do the things. So by obtaining this, by introducing the Jeffrey Moore's model, I'd be able to communicate. I have a framework to communicate and duplicate and teach. That helped me to crystallize that when I became a general manager and president of the Microsoft Korea, within a very short period, I make the organization something to deal with in Korean society. So because of the result of that, I become relatively famous in the industry. And
And you're too humble, but I know you actually translated, you told me 3 books of Jeffrey Moore in Korean.
Well, as a practitioner, you don't get to translate the books. Mostly professional translators translate the books. That's what the industry is. I think this is the first book that I translated not because to make money. Actually, I didn't make any money. The translating the book, but the it the book sold. The translated book sold more than Japan, more than the China.
Wow,
Okay,
amazing.
so at the same time, the translating the book helped me to understand the concepts, terminology, framework of the theory behind it and model behind it, so that I be able to implement it without the original author. So I became a translated author of the book.
Yes.
So I was I was the one evangelizing the concept many years before the Clayton Christensen, the Harvard professor, came to Korea, and they introduced disruptive innovation. So because of that result, because of that the translation process, I get to know the model, but at the same time, they allow me to rub shoulders with Jeffrey Moore. That's another benefit.
No.
And because of that reason, I be able to pick spots and do other things that otherwise, monetary-wise, directly monetary-wise, translating book didn't make any return on investment.
I'm sure.
But the side benefits are much greater than I expected. I think so. And later on, I found out the translated author is not well regarded, and not as well as regarded as in the United States. The translated author is treated as a pseudo author in the United States. I didn't realize that if written a book and then the author becomes as a very, it's put them in a high echelon, because of they have been proven to the market that you are worth of that category of books. But at the same time, the translator the author, other than native language, translated into the books, and then that category books becomes a category bestseller in the country. That's added the merits for the translator. I didn't know. I didn't realize that it was, and that's why I think Jeffrey treated me as his friends and the cohort, and the friendship lasted since '91. Since then.
So you have been applying all this not only in your previous companies, but you are applying it today. I know you're working on many projects.
Right.
So what are the most exciting projects you are working on today? As a futurist, I know you are working on a very futuristic project.
In the part of the managing technology, the technology-based companies, you have to understand the technology and its impact. And one of the consulting or as working as an advisor, I had an opportunity to stumble into something very, very big. I'm very excited about it. So I took the well-paying job, and I joined the company as a technical advisor and as well as a operating executive. And so it's an upcoming IoT, the Internet of the Things era is coming, or imminent, that it will come. And however, there's a lot of talk, but less than the progress of IoT is less than what the media or scholars has predicted about. And the IoT as an industry as a society has to solve two major problems. One is interoperability between the different manufacturers. It's maybe a little too early to standardize it, but the major companies who wants to participate, it's like Apple phone doesn't work with Google phone, or Samsung phone, or Amazon's Echo doesn't work with them. Facebook doesn't work with some other social network. So interoperability has to be there. For instance, if you want to do, you purchase the LG washer, and you purchase somehow your brother purchased the dryer from Samsung dryer, and Whirlpool something, it has to interoperable. It has to work harmoniously. It doesn't work that way. And at the same time, Google phones, the Google HomeKit or the Apple HomeKit and the Google the home network or Nest doesn't work together. Or General Electric, the fire alarm doesn't work with the Honeywell's thermostat. It has to work together in unison and interoperability.
And today it doesn't.
It doesn't. Every big companies wants to dominate in the field. They fight each other. They're saying they're standardizing, they're working with it, but I'm not sure when it's going to happen. So that's interoperability has to be there. And second, the even more fundamental thing is the IoT security has to be there. But currently, there's no root of trust for the IoT end devices.
Root of trust.
It's not available. Technology is not there. For instance, a credit card can be hacked. Even an Apple phone has been hacked. The Qualcomm chips has been hacked. Because of the two reasons. One is they are storing the key, which is encrypting the text, are stored in the same place. That key can be stolen and tampered with. You have to have root of trust cannot be manipulated or stolen. And I'm happily and proudly that we're the number one, the commercially having that root of trust available in a semiconductor, which can be used as a authenticating machine-to-machine communications. For instance, machine-to-machine authentication is very difficult, but if at the robotic stages is going to come, and then also autonomous driving will be coming. But if somebody can tamper with authentication, identity is stolen or manipulated, then your car can be a weapon. Robots listening to somebody else other than you is going to be a big problem. So smaller scale, let me explain a little bit, is if you're the drone. Current drones as a toy. If you have two children, two toys, two drones you purchase, you have a set is coming with a controller and a drones. And then two boys working on, or two girls working on, trying to control the drones at the same time in the same room, they cross communicating. It's a big problem. By having a unique ID built in the controller and the drone, that you can have established a root of trust to a point. The command control is only the drone is listening to your own controller.
And only this one.
Only this one. is guaranteed and the semiconductors available, and we're shipping since August of last year. We are making a very meaningful references in Korea. LG Group has announced publicly they're working on it, whether their appliances, telecommunications, in the end points area. And there are many smaller ones are doing that. At the same time, one of the largest appliance company, I cannot mention the name, in China, they have adopted our product, and they're working on the pilot runs. Hopefully by the end of this fall or maybe next year, the volume production will be coming through. So we're very excited about it. So that the machine-to-machine authentication will be available to the cars, electrical cars. They're at least 60 points, 60 microcontrollers, or maybe as much as 120 to 150 microcontrollers will be in a car that has to be guarded with or they have to establish root of trust within the microcontrollers. So we're happy for the future. So I think we're having a contribution to the Korea's technology. Will be able to making a worldwide infrastructure of IoT world safe.
And
so I'm excited.
I'm not a specialist, so I may ask
I don't know whether I need
stupid questions. The trust, what you call the root of trust, is embedded in the silicon chip, and is it like a hardware trust, or may I call it a software trust?
So that's a question. Is what happened? Each person come up with a biosensors or biometrics. It's like a fingerprint sensors, or the iris, or the hand characterizations and so on. Where the semiconductor, each of the semiconductors, within a wafer, they're identical twins. Adjacent chips are supposedly identical, but minute differences the way they process are there. We're using the minute differences. We're giving them a identity, characterized identity that cannot be taken out from the semiconductor. So that's the beauty of it. So we call it PUF, P-U-F, physically unclonable function chip.
And it is physical.
Physically unclonable. So the simplest form of a PUF is plain paper. You put ink on it, drop of ink. You cannot duplicate it next time, right? It's very difficult. So many time you're trying to duplicate it, you cannot duplicate it at the next step. Almost impossible. That concept is called a physically unclonable function. Cannot be duplicated. But the printed ink have one major flaw. If you drop water in it, it smears. If somebody dried up and somebody smears, it cannot be used as a key. Identity changes. So it cannot be used. So the credit card people, in search of a root of trust, establishing root of trust, they've been doing a lot of research since late 90s and early 2000. They come up with a PUF concept, and we're the first one in the world coming up with a commercial chip can be used, won't change. It will not change. And it's a repeatable, constant, unique, and we're shipping.
That's quite amazing because I guess that we are talking about amazing numbers. I assume that we are producing silicon chip, more silicon chips every year that there are humans on this planet. So basically we are talking about billions or billions of single identities.
Right. You need, yeah, every single phone will need this.
And every microcontroller in every
Right.
car or washing machine. for that
Washing
instance.
machines or many things.
Okay, so as a futurist,
So we're actually,
yeah.
what we're doing is we're Christianing, or maybe some of the people may be offended by Christianing. So actually we are giving it fingerprints or DNA of each of the chip.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, that's
So, as a futurist, I can't help but ask you the question, since authentication is not only a question for silicon chip, it's also, as you mentioned, with biometrics, it's a question for humans. So do you think that one day somebody is going to use your technology to put under his or her skin to say, look, I am Bruno, and this is me, this is 100% guaranteed, it cannot be duplicated? Do you see this as a future, and what do you think about it?
Well, I think it will be. It's already those technology are already available. So identifying the pets.
Yes.
So so already available to do that. But the identity can be also duplicated, because the way the ID and the key are stored, it could change
Today.
because they're storing the identity and the encrypted data and a key are stored in one chip. If it decipher and then get it, then you'll be able to duplicate.
So if you have a dog, we cannot
Different
now duplicate your dog, but we can duplicate your dog's
chip.
identity
right
today. But with your technology,
Cannot do that.
Cannot.
Right.
So that's a big difference.
That's the difference.
That's
we
why
call the via. We're using. There's many different puffs, but we call it via puff. We're using the original process, a semiconductor manufacturing process, cannot be changed with the temperature or the environment.
Very clean.
So very clean. So and we had a very important, influential security vice president came to visit us last week, and he was very excited, and he want us to be a partner with him.
So being in, and it's amazing.
So we're excited.
Congratulations.
I'm proud.
I can understand why not only you are proud, but also why you are excited. Being in the middle of all these technological changes of the past years, decades, and still being in the middle of it, obviously right now, if you have to name 3 major changes in the coming years, whether technological or not, but by the way, what would be, I mean, I'm asking you to do my job. I'm asking you to be a futurist. What would be the 3 main changes that we are going to see in the next 10 years?
Next 10 years. Without having to solve the interoperability between different manufacturers, without establishing root of trust available, the main change, there's going to be a resistance to the accepting new technology based products. So for instance, the robotics. robotics will have many different microprocessors within the chip that can be stolen. Identity keys are stolen, somebody else manipulating. So currently they're using in a software-based product. Unless the interoperability as well as a root of trust, the security is guaranteed, the adaptation will be slow. Adaptation is on a very small scale, early stage. You never go into the mainstream. For instance, you're fearing the car. Somebody, currently if you look at the YouTube, somebody taking control of your Jeep. Tesla was hacked within, I think a year ago in Shanghai. It was hacked within a day, not even a day. Credit card, they're coming out, smart card in the United States coming up, they're hacked. So if somebody was going with you with a little hacking machine, I take an escalator with you, I can read all the credit cards name, and I can charge to your accounts. So it's already there. So it's a fear. There's a behavioral change of the consumers has to change with this technology, and you have to provide one, security and interoperability. So you've been talking about the home network for many years. The concept of they're trying to do it in the software solutions. It comes close to meeting that, but becomes very cumbersome. So you reach the limit. You reach the limitations of software solutions. So you need to have a hardware and making the software nimble, so that it be able to microseconds being able to do that instead of millisecond response time. Microseconds be able to do that. Because who are you? I'm Bruno. I'm Sam. I'd be able to do it very quickly. It does it if you were moving 120 kilometers per hour, and then you took nobody's there and are trying to move, and then making a wrong decision is crashes. So who's gonna do that? Being able to so those two things are solved, then robotics, drones, or the autonomous cars are going to be in the future.
So that's why for you that's the two major things that we are going to see.
Right. At the same time, we talked about the big data. The big data is biased, but only it doesn't represent the whole, because like Alibaba or the Amazon has a huge, but they're only limited to a sampling of their customers, not the whole. Facebook is also limited, also biased data, because non-users is not going to be doing, or so that means the interoperability between them has to be there. But statistically, I guess some people, the theoreticians, say, yeah, it's possible, but that's not beyond my theoretical background. So you have to rely on them. There may be some other methods of having a representation of those people not using it, but from my perspective, I guess the interoperability has to be solved, and then security has to be solved, so that IoT's endpoints and the systems available, so the big data coming out of that will be able to use for good use.
Very clear. Sam, one last question, my favorite question. You are so experienced in all these fields, and your own life has made you travel to so many countries, meeting so many people. What, and I know you're also a great mentor. You're mentoring people, helping younger people on their project. What would be your three most important advices to younger people to be future proof, to be future ready?
It's not mine, but it's I also adapted. As I have Mr. Hewlett and Mr. Packard. They had the privilege of working for the company, as well as they had a chance to host them personally when they visited Korea. Unfortunately, the what happens is the story is not on the archive or the Hewlett Packard. The Michael Malone has written, or somebody written the biography. Many research on that. It's not in there, but what I heard from my managers by verbally from the generation of the managers is that three things they talked about. It's, I think the Hewlett and Packard, when they were growing, the first time they hired many people fresh out of college or fresh out of graduate school. It's many people, and one of the employee asked for the consultation with the president, and the question was, how am I doing? So I think Mr. Packard has, before I answer this question, let me ask three questions. It says, are you making a contribution to your organization, your group? Tell me about it. How are you making a contribution? That's the first question, is contribution. The second is, and it says, are you learning and growing from your job? Tell me about it. How you are. What have you learned? What makes you think you're growing from your job? And third is, are you having fun doing it from your job? Tell me about what are you doing? So three things, that's what I heard from my boss, my boss's boss, when they were growing. And when I tell that story to my young people or my employees, I have a very good response from them. I was looking at my career, and I looked back. Every 3 to 5 years, my job has changed. Even when I stayed with the same company for 20 years, I changed the job, or scope of the job changes every 3 to 5 years. And whenever I ask the questions, am I contributing? Yeah. Then am I growing and learning? Maybe. Am I having fun doing the job? Asking these questions, when I having a maybe, that's the time I change the jobs. And so I think these three questions, you have to make a contribution somehow to the community or college or company or country or the world. You have to make a contribution. If you're the taker, then people not respect you, so it's not fun. So I think this three question is really very wise questions that governs me. And I think one of the, you interviewed the Sean and some other people. When I told the same story, they're moved. So I think, nowadays, sense of purpose. Why do you do what you do? That Zuckerberg talks about, Martin Luther King talks about, John F. Kennedy talks about. Why do you do what you do? I think that's the sense of purpose, and you have to contribute to the society or the community, the college and company and so on. So I think the contribution has to be there. And second thing is you have to have a sense of learning and growing, not only the physically or the materially, as well as the spiritually or the psychologically. You have to feel something there. And then third one has to be having fun doing it. So if it's not there, so anything is imbalancing questioning. I used to question myself. Am I contributing? Yes, I'm contributing, but I'm not growing. So I'm kind of coasting. Then that's the time I change. So I tell tell my mentees, or employees, or students that I working with. Those three questions are very valid and wise questions. I share and then I pay forward with friends.
Wow.
That's what.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. Thank you for all your time here in Seoul, and this is so exciting. So